In 586 BC, Babylonian soldiers broke through the innermost doors of the Jerusalem temple. But instead of claiming the ultimate prize, they found absolute nothingness. They expected to seize a gold-plated chest that functioned as the literal throne of God on earth, a heavy containment unit for a presence considered lethal to anyone who touched it. The historical record abruptly stops decades earlier. King Josiah makes a brief mention of it in 622 BC, and after that, the text goes completely silent. To figure out where it went, we have to look back at the original blueprints that made it so terrifying to begin with. The Ark was a highly engineered anomaly. Its sudden disappearance leaves a void that puzzles archaeologists looking for a physical object and challenges theologians trying to understand a divine plan. We start at the foot of Mount Sinai. A group of ex-slaves, barely 3 months out of Egypt, are handed a highly specific set of instructions to construct a masterpiece in the middle of a barren desert. The measurements were exact: 2.5 cubits long by 1.5 wide and high. In modern terms, that is roughly 1.15 meters long and 70 centimeters tall and wide, a compact size designed specifically to be transported. The core was carved from acacia wood, a highly rot-resistant material that later theologians would see as representing humanity. This was entirely wrapped inside and out with thick, beaten gold, pointing toward an eternal, divine nature. Inside this heavy chest rested 3 specific items: the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, the rod of Aaron that had miraculously blossomed, and a golden jar filled with manna from their desert wanderings. Capping it off was the mercy seat, a solid slab of pure gold featuring 2 winged cherubim facing one another. Once a year, the high priest would sprinkle blood over this exact spot to atone for the people's sins. This was a precisely engineered meeting point, designed to safely house infinite holiness among humans who were otherwise unable to survive the proximity. But containing that holiness required extreme caution. The Ark held an untamed, lethal energy. When treated like a magic talisman, it failed spectacularly, as the Israelites learned when they tried to use its presence to force a military victory. Yet when handled with strict obedience, it acted as a tool of massive environmental control. As the priests stepped into the flooding Jordan River carrying the Ark, the water stopped and piled up, allowing a whole nation to cross. It led the march that collapsed the impregnable walls of Jericho. And when the Philistines eventually captured it in battle, they suffered through a 7-month nightmare of plagues and devastation until they begged to return it. Moving the Ark safely meant following rigorous rules. It was draped entirely in blue cloth so no one could look at it directly. A specific group of Levites had to carry it on their shoulders using permanent wooden poles, ensuring human hands never made contact. Decades later, a man named Uzzah ignored those rules. King David was moving the Ark on a new ox cart, a direct violation of the transport protocol. When the oxen stumbled, Uzzah reached out to steady the chest, and the sheer force of divine anger killed him on the spot. Uzzah had grown up near the artifact and let familiarity breed a fatal lack of reverence. Closeness to the sacred gave no one a license to be casual. Mishandling the divine presence was an absolute death sentence. Which brings us back to the present day and to the central question: where is this lethal object right now? The trail goes cold right here, at its final resting place in Jerusalem. Historians and treasure hunters have chased 3 main theories for centuries. The first relies on an ancient apocryphal text, suggesting the prophet Jeremiah hid the chest in a secret, sealed cave on Mount Nebo right before the Babylonian invasion. The second points to Africa. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church claims to have possessed the Ark for millennia, keeping it fiercely guarded in the city of Aksum, though they have never allowed outside experts to examine it. The third theory suggests it never left the city at all, proposing that it remains buried deep inside undiscovered, sealed tunnels directly beneath the Temple Mount. The fact that no shovel has ever touched it suggests that the archaeological trail was intentionally closed. In this narrative, the silence regarding the Ark's location isn't a missing page, it's a finished chapter. The old system required a physical box to bridge the gap between a holy God and a sinful people. But the New Testament describes a shift where that presence was no longer localized. When the temple veil tore, the barrier the ark was built to manage effectively dissolved. With the divine now dwelling within the individual rather than a gold-plated chest, the physical ark stopped being a necessity. It vanished from history because it had been superseded by a different kind of presence, rendering the lethal golden box obsolete.